Okay, let's do a quick test to see how the audio and video work. We've got our new motion tracking camera up here, and let's see if we can explain some of the problems in my W Spring book from passage 1. Okay, so starting with number 1, rather than just reading the answer choices on the right, let's actually take a look at the complete sentence to make sure that we don't miss something obvious. And because this problem is just number 2, we might as well read the previous sentence as well. So let's take a look. It's widely understood that the field of computer science and the coding profession suffer from a lack of diversity. As of 2013, a survey of the 10 largest technology companies, in the US, a survey subject of the 10 largest companies revealed SV, O, that seems messed up. A survey of the 10 largest technology companies in the US revealed, that women represented just 12% of software engineers. Well, A is not necessarily a grammar rule that we know, but we're going to eliminate it because it's SV, O. Okay, that punctuation is extra and incorrect. B, it looks good to me because it's a survey revealed that women represent 12% of software engineers. I like that answer, but let's go ahead and take a look. A survey reveals, the fact that women represented. I think A and C are out for the same reason, the same punctuation. And D is out because we cannot put a period after the word reveals here. Remember, if we're going to put a colon there, we have to also be able to put a period in the same part of the sentence, and we can't put a period after the word reveals. So B and D is the answer. We've got punched errors all around, and let's move on to number 2. All right, so number 2 says, however, there are, notice our inverted sentence. We probably recognize that as a 4-4A inverted sentence. There are, and then the subject, of course, is a number. If we memorize a number as plural, then we're probably pretty happy with this answer already. There are a number of plots that aim to reverse the trend. Well, because of all of these SV errors, I know exactly what my answer is for number 2. Let's move on to number 3. This one's vocab. There are a number of plots that aim to reverse the trend. What trend were we talking about? Let's get our context. The trend of women being so underrepresented in software engineering. Okay. Well, plot, kind of like stratagem. In this context, it's got a negative connotation. It's like a scheme, something nefarious, perhaps. Same with ploy. Initiative, of course, is the word we want because a policy initiative is some type of attempt, maybe by government, maybe by charity, but some type of policy action that's aiming to solve some kind of problem. All right, let's scroll down and see the last question on this page. Notice, of course, we've got an info flow question here for number 4. So we remember our general method for info flow is calmly, patiently reading the entire paragraph to make sure that we've got enough context so that we don't make a mistake caused by partial reading or word matching or something like that. But it's okay for us to read our actual question. If we take a look at our actual question, we can see it's asking us to look for specific examples to illustrate a claim made in the previous sentence. Okay, so when we read, I'm still going to read the entire paragraph, but I'm going to pay attention to see if I can find a specific example and a claim in the previous sentence that I'm going to be illustrating. So let's take a look. Remember we said women are underrepresented in computer science and coding, and that specific example of software engineering. Then we had a pivot, and we said that there are several initiatives. There are some initiatives to reverse the trend. In other words, there are going to be initiatives designed at getting women in these fields, increasing the diversity in these fields. Okay, so In an effort to identify a role model for young women interested in STEM, we can turn the page. And then the next page, we've got something like a holiday being proposed to honor this lady, Ada Lovelace. Okay. Well, we're supposed to add specific examples of perhaps initiatives that are trying to get women in the STEM field. So let's look at our options and see what kinds of specific initiatives we might be mentioning. Specific examples to illustrate the trend. A says, as of last year, an uptick in the number of women choosing STEM majors was observed. According to a survey, there's no initiative. Okay, so specific examples, we're looking for initiative, policies. So we're missing an initiative in A. B says one problem facing women in STEM is the lack of visible role models. Well, getting role models like Ada Lovelace may help, but remember the question is asking us to look for specific examples of a number of initiatives. So C says organizations like Girls Who Code and Engineer Girl have been created by volunteers and donors who are interested in offering young women the chance to get high-level computer training. Okay, so we've got organizations offering training. Programs like Tech Women, okay, that sounds like an initiative, have gotten funding to offer summer programs and scholarships for young women. Okay, that seems relevant. That seems like good examples of initiatives. Let's just make sure that D isn't somehow better. Of course, if funding is not made available for job training, it may take a long time before STEM fields can attract numbers of women. C is clearly what we're looking for. That's a very easy RQ, isn't it? Okay, let's turn the page and continue. Remember though, number 5 on the next page starts over on this page. So let's read the beginning of the sentence. In an effort to identify a role model for young women, and then we get a comma on the next page. In an effort to identify a role model, you should recognize that as a modifier. It's not a clause. In an effort in order to try to find a role model. So over here, we're looking for a person, right? Or maybe people who can try to find a role model. The so-called Countess of Computing has been honored. Well, she is the role model. She's not the one who's trying to find it. People can find role models, right? Like we have in C. And Ada Lovelace stayed as well for the same reason. So that's a very easy MOD modifier problem. Let's keep going. Number 6. Well, number 6 is exactly what it smells like, but it still can't hurt to read the sentence just to make sure. It certainly smells like a redundancy problem. Ada's mother feared that her daughter would inherit her father's alleged madness, so she was determined to provide Ada with an education that would strengthen, fortify. They're the same thing. We've just got redundancy. 6 is easy. We move on. Maybe we have to go back and read that later, but for now, it's okay not to. Number 7, again, don't just look over here. It might look like one thing, but if you read the sentence, maybe we'll see something else. Some of her advocates have described her as a prodigy, but at least one of her detractors. Okay, so we got 2 sentences here. One, of course, is the subject of the second clause, not detractors, because detractors comes after me. So one, obviously, is our subject. And, okay, maybe we have to pay attention to tense. Okay, let's go back and read the preceding sentences to make sure we have complete context. So, her ability has been called into question. What tense is that? That's present tense. That's present perfect. Some of her advocates have described her, once again, present perfect. Have described her as a prodigy, but at least one of her detractors, that's past tense. Let's look over here. That's past tense. These 2 are present, but what's our subject? 1. There we go. Okay, so SV, easy annotation for why this one's wrong, and we move on. Number 8, this one's tricky. Certainly looks like an idiom, but don't be tempted. Read the sentence. Let's get the complete context. Well, it's probably true that she was not the mathematical equal, her famous collaborator Charles Babbage. She certainly did have a keen, insightful mind. Well, you have to be very careful with the word equal. Equal has two different idiom structures. One of them is the equal, can be plural, of. Okay? You could say something like, the ancient Romans were the equals of the ancient Egyptians. You could also say that X is equal to Y. Okay, when you're comparing people and you use the word the, you need to make sure you put your preposition of. Okay, so the equal of another person. She was not the mathematical equal of Charles Babbage. That one's tricky. Again, there's more than one idiom you need to know with the word equal. Maybe you hear the word to most often after the word equal, but that doesn't mean it's always the answer. Okay, as with all things on this test, it's important to know your rules, but it's of course equally important to pay attention to context. Let's move on to number 9. Once again, we can see over here in number 9, we've got another info-fill question. So let's make sure that we've got enough context so that we'll know whether we need to keep or delete the thing in question. So we're going to go back to the beginning of this paragraph, and we're going to make sure we understand the full context before we make any attempt to try to figure out whether we want to keep something or delete something. Okay, we're going to stay patient, we're going to stay calm. That's what always pays off on this silly test. All right. Lovelace's mathematical ability has at times been called into question. Some of her advocates have described her as a prodigy, but at least one of her detractors has described her ability as middling at best. Okay, so the topic sentence tells us, the main GS tells us that she may not be very good at math, at least not compared to Charles Babbage. Okay, it's probably true that she wasn't as good at math as Babbage was, but she did have a keen, insightful mind. So we've conceded something. We've conceded that maybe she's not the best mathematician in the world, but then we've introduced a new GS. We said she's got a keen, insightful mind, so we're going to have to support that probably with details. Let's keep going. Indeed. All right, here's some supporting evidence coming, right? While translating one of Babbage's articles into French, Lovelace added, what did she add? Something insightful, probably. Added a footnote of her own, exploring the future implications of the as yet unconstructed analytical engine. A device that Babbage, remember he's the partner, that Babbage thought would be useful in solving various types of math problems. Okay. So, what did she do that was insightful? She recognized some future implications of a machine that hasn't been built yet. All right. So, there's nothing else to read after sentence 9. Sometimes what I might do is I would skip over the sentence and I would keep reading whatever's down here, but the paragraph simply ends. So, already before I read the underlined section, I might think to myself, we said that she has an insightful mind. And then we gave an example right here of some of her insights that might feel complete to me, but maybe you can elaborate more. Maybe we can continue talking about the keen, insightful mind that she had. Let's see what we have. Lovelace recognized that the device could actually be used as a generalized thinking machine. What device? Probably the analytical engine, the thing that hadn't been constructed yet. The device could actually be used as a generalized thinking machine. She envisioned ways the machine could create and manipulate mathematical representations of the world. And that's exactly what today's computers do. Okay, so this woman had the ability to prophesize. She could see the future uses of a machine that at this point was just an idea. She's envisioning things. Right? She's imagining what computers do long before a computer was ever built. That seems keen and insightful. That certainly seems relevant to the GS that we read on the previous page, and it actually seems relevant to this statement as well about her being able to explore the future implications of this device. I like keeping the sentence, but let's make sure we have the right reason. And just in case we misunderstood something, we're going to pay attention to C and D also. So A says, keep it because it clarifies the ways in which Lovelace had insight into the possible impact of proposed machine. And maybe I don't like the word impact over here exactly, but repeating that insight thing, that might be good. Let's keep reading B. Keep it because it demonstrates that she was just as accomplished a mathematician. This is nonsense. I read my paragraph carefully. She wasn't a great mathematician compared to Babbage. It's not the mathematics that is important about her. It's her keen, insightful mind and her ability to make these predictions that eventually came true. Okay, so wrong reason. I like A the best. Let's keep going though. C says delete it because it distracts from the paragraph's focus on Babbage. It's not about Babbage. The whole essay is about Lovelace. No. Delete it because it repeats details that were given earlier in the paragraph. It doesn't repeat details. This goes into much more specific detail explaining that this analytical engine was sort of a predecessor of the modern computer. This is new. This is totally relevant. Excellent to keep. Okay, let's move on now to number 10. Well, looks like grammar again. Maybe I don't have to read the entire paragraph yet. I probably will have to for number 11 anyway. Number 10, the sentence says, wow, it's a long sentence. She did propose algorithms that would later be used by actual programmers. She recognized the implications of computing machines, that's very ubiquitous, and by translating so many articles, that's easy. So we've got parallelism here, but then we've embedded a modifier, okay? And by translating, well, item A, item B, item C. Item B has subject, verb. This has a modifier first, but we need to still have subject, verb. We need to fix a modifier error here. Now, by translating, Lovelace's work did not translate, she translated. So we've avoided the mod error, and we've got a good parallel sentence in choice B. Now, the question at number 11 asks us once again to do something specific. We're going to conclude the paragraph by acknowledging the points of disagreement about her life, while also, number 2, emphasizing the importance of her legacy. Okay, let's do those two things. But let's read the paragraph first. Okay, whether Lovelace actually was the world's first programmer, a claim that has been disputed by those who point out that Babbage's proposed computing device was never actually built. Let's go back again. Whether Lovelace was actually the world's first computer programmer is ultimately less important than her very real contributions to the field of modern computing. Okay, so maybe she wasn't a programmer, maybe she wasn't great at math, right? But she definitely contributed to modern computing. Let's get our details. She did propose algorithms that would later be used by actual programmers. She recognized how these implications of computing machines, we read about that above. And because she translated so many important scientific articles, she connected many of the important thinkers who then led to the computing revolution. So she's this pioneering, seminal figure. Okay. And then this is the last sentence. Let's once again pay attention to our criteria. We want to acknowledge the points of disagreement about her life, but we want to emphasize the importance of her legacy. So let's not trash her legacy, but let's maybe be willing to concede some things. Indeed, it's hard to imagine how that revolution could have ever gotten started without the enormous contributions she made. Well, we definitely emphasize the importance of her legacy in A, but we're missing the points of disagreement. So clue number 1 is missing in choice A. B says it may take a while for the record to be corrected. I don't know if that's a point of disagreement. But in time, more people may feel that her contributions to computing have been overstated. No. We don't want to say that her contributions have been overstated. Remember, we're supposed to emphasize the importance of her legacy. So number 2 has been underlined by choice B, hasn't it? Okay. Let's check C and D. It's got to be one of those. So C, she may not have been the first actual programmer. That's a good concession. But her brilliant vision and hard work and her passion for fields that are still male-dominated, ooh, nice link back to the intro, make her an ideal role model for women interested in STEM. That's a good answer. That's her legacy. Clearly the best conclusion, but let's check D. In short, she may be the mother of computing, but it's not possible to give birth without a mother and a father. Okay, well, once again, we've sort of cleverly de-emphasized her importance by bringing Babbage into it again or something. He's the father. Okay, C is definitely the answer. We're done with our passage. It was really pretty straightforward as long as we were calm and patient and made sure we paid attention to context along the way. So, good.